Well, what's up, guys? Good to be back in the truck with you. Listen to a little talk radio. The station comes in and out. I think it's funny. They got some commentary on the news of the day and what's going on, and the whole aspect of can you defend yourself in North America, yes or no. It seems like quite a pain in the butt. You know, you never really want to be in a situation where you have to defend yourself, regardless if there's any sort of physical force involved, because it just seems like such a racket, and it seems so expensive if you ever have to really deal with it. And unfortunately, I've always felt like this, but certainly over the last decade, where like in America, you're definitely guilty until proven innocent. It's not the opposite way. We don't treat you as innocent until proven guilty. And that's probably just has to do with the fourth turning, which I talk about all the time. Great book, link below. Highly recommend that you check that out. I do the audiobook, a couple of versions, but I've listened to it now twice, and it's just a book on demographics and what's going on, and it's super fascinating. They wrote this thing in 97, published it in 97, which means they wrote it a lot earlier, and they depicted a few things that were going to occur, and we're right on schedule. One thing I've been thinking through in conjunction with another book I read called The Sovereign Individual, I believe that's what it was. Peter Thiel did the foreword for it, and it was interesting because it was also written about the same time frame, and they predicted that the first part of the 21st century would be a little gooey and ooky, but they had a very rosy view of what was going to happen in the 21st century. Essentially, nation states are coming down for the purpose of the reason that they're not going to be able to tax. And so because they're not going to be able to tax at a larger scale, and I'm talking like at a national level, it creates this situation where you end up with more localized government, if you have government at all. And you enter essentially a state of federalism, which is exactly where I think we are. Federalism is where the states are their own things, they're doing their own thing, and there's a federal level for the purpose of like U.S. military, and that's basically it. I mean, even currency and things like that was not necessarily handled at a federal level pre-1860s. And so Lincoln wanted to push the country into like, I want to be a nation, like a power state. And the South was like, bro, we're paying 70% of all the taxes, and you're throwing import tariffs on us because we want to buy European machinery. It made sense in the 1800s. Like, you want to buy some really nice quality, material for your farm, whether that be like steam tractors or nice cutting devices or whatever it is that you want to buy. You're buying it from Europe. I mean, straight up, you're getting it from the Germans, you're getting it from, and the North was like, no, you need to buy our stuff, and they went down there and shoved their agenda down their throat. And so it was no civil war. It was a failed secession. We could actually call it the War of Northern Aggression. Would be a better way, a more historical way to actually say that. So I think that we're entering that a pre-Civil War like state of being, like permanent being. So I'm not saying that we're moving into the Civil War like thing. I'm just saying that we're gonna probably fracture off. I don't think it'll be gooey for sure, but that there's no reason for, say, Florida and California to be under the same banner. There's just no reason. If you think of the United States of America as a company, and the CEO is your president, and your accounting department is the IRS, and you've got your representatives in there. Well, some departments are getting stolen from, and it's going into other departments, and other departments are clearly failing. All of their policies are clearly failing, but their policies are bleeding in to the rest of the company and bringing the rest of the company down. It just makes sense that the research and design department can go. The farming and agriculture department can go. And there's no reason for it to stay as one body, and the chaos and insanity will continue as long as a state like California can get by on printed dollars at the expense of the rest of the country, because they're always in deficit. They're always in deficit. Highest taxes in the nation, but they're always in deficit. And so we're going to move to the state of federalism, I believe, where it's just like, yeah, we're down here in Florida, and like, we're just doing our thing, man. And like, whatever you're doing up in DC, like, dude, I mean, cool for you, bro. But like, Boston, the Massachusetts folks, like, whatever you guys are doing, like, that's cool. I mean, we're down here in Florida, Texas, Georgia, like, we're doing our own thing. And I don't think it's going to be like a north-south thing. I think it's just going to be like pockets. Maybe states will roll together. Maybe they'll roll independently. It'll be like an unofficial official way of being. And we've seen this with the weed laws in the last decade. Like, oh, we're gonna make weed, totally, we'll start at medical, we'll move it to recreational, state to state to state. And I think like more than 50% of the states are like, you can smoke weed somehow or another. You might have to pay some tax. You might have to pay, like, buy a weed card or whatever. But like, you got to pay the medical authoritarians. Like, they got to get paid. but ultimately, yeah, you can inject or you can consume a plant. Congratulations. It's great that, like, we're finally back to having a little bit of freedom as far as that goes. I mean, the war on drugs was a complete cluster. Because, CIA doesn't want any competition, man. Can't have any competition. And so when you have these black markets, they still happen. You just incentivize, big major players to come in and play. But I think we're entering a state of federalism because I don't think they're going to be able to effectively tax. And so at wherever we go here in this next decade, at some point we're going to see a state like Texas or Florida. We're going to deal with the mandates. We're not going to deal with the threats. We're not going to do the lawsuits. We're just not going to allow you in our state. So please, feds, stay away. And the feds might be like, oh no, we got the authority to do what we want. And maybe states, national guards and things like that are going to have to, kind of square off. I'm not saying there's going to be battles, but it might just be one of these unknowns, like, or just like this untalked about, like, we're not going to go with your gig here. We're not going to enforce your tyranny here. And therefore people will vote with their feet. Like, we're already seeing people mass migrate from this state to that state, etc. So it's interesting to me because all you've got to do to make this really happen is just have a state like Florida go, dude, we're done paying taxes. No more income tax. The income tax is, in my opinion, unconstitutional and never existed until 1913. But yet there were still bridges and roads and a military and all of that. But we never had income taxes. And then, we introduce the Federal Reserve and we say, it's only 2 weeks to flatten the curve, guys. It's only the 1% that'll be taxed, up to 6%. It's small. It's only on the richest people. It's only on the robber barons, as they call it, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and those types. But now, who pays the tax? It's not the Elon Musks and the Ford family. No. It's not Jeff Bezos. No. It's the middle class that pays the taxes. It's the W-2 workers that pay the taxes. I mean, the dumbest thing you could do is go out and get a job and make $100,000 plus a year. It's one of the dumbest things you could do. Is it immediately throws you in a 35% tax bracket, which means every dollar you make above that 100 or above that 80,000 or whatever, they change the rules all the time, is getting taxed at 35%. I mean, you're literally walking home with 65. If you flip it and you're a 1099 employee, subcontractor, you have your own business, you get to write off. You get paid first, you get to expense next, and you pay tax on what remains. So you get to expense and invest first, and then pay tax on what remains. And if you do it like Trump, you don't pay any. You pay $500, $750, you pay whatever. Because real estate has so many write-offs. That's how the game is, and that's his industry. So you don't have to pay tax on real estate. And you can actually utilize the currency of the United States, which is debt. If you look at the back of your dollar bills, it says debt. Like, that's literally what a dollar bill is. It's not like money, where it's a silver, gold, or copper, where it's literal payment. And so it's like, it is literal payment in itself. The debt it's bizarre, you give somebody $1 and it's technically a liability of the Federal Reserve, and you put it in the bank and it's technically a liability of the bank, and the bank is liability of the Fed, and it's all a mirage, it's all fake. And then you've got this worker who, like, you've got your political elites. I mean, the inflation rate publicly is now annualized at 8% for 21. At this point in time. We'll know at the end of the year when final numbers are in, but it's looking like it's going to come out at like 8.2, 8.3 official numbers. If we measured it like we did in the 70s, we'd be over 14% right now, inflation. So it's like, yeah, you made $100,000, but really your purchasing power went down by 14% plus your taxes. So it's like taxes first, then 14%. I mean, you're basically keeping 50% of your money at that point, your currency. It makes no sense. And then on top of that, if you're an employer, now you've got a federal level that's like going to mandate the thing, the medicine, the experimental drugs. They're going to mandate that on they're talking about it. They're not going to do anything. But it's like, doesn't really make sense to do business here, man. Doesn't really make sense to employ people on W-2s. it makes sense for everyone to become a subcontractor. And so I think that the society we're moving to is, yeah, people are going to become subcontractors. That's going to hurt the tax base. People are going to move to other forms of payment because it makes more sense. I'm going to do a second part to this video. I'll try to ship them both today. And the second part of this video is my opinion on cryptocurrencies. I mean, yeah, I'm a huge metal guy. I love silver and gold. I've got a ton of it. And I like copper, actually. I'm really warming up to copper these days. It's hard to store. It doesn't have a whole lot of value, as opposed to gold. I mean, you can put, 10 grand of value like that. It's actually it's way easier to have 10 grand worth of gold than have 10 grand worth of dollar bills. Like, it's so much easier. But if you get silver, man, 10 grand of silver it's a stack. I just brought some to my dad's house not too long ago, and I brought a duffel bag, and it had 10 grand worth of silver in it. It was heavy, it was like, now I don't think that that's true 10 grand worth of silver. I think that that's, in my opinion, probably like, I honestly think silver's 10x undervalued. So I think it's more like 100 grand of silver priced in today's dollars. But we'll find out if I'm right or not. I just think silver is the most undervalued thing. And whenever I do any savings at this point, because I consider those savings, not investments. But if I'm making an investment, or at this point savings, because there's no reason to make investments in my opinion, because savings is enough. All you have to do is just save in the metals, and in my opinion, it meets my criteria, which is I want a 10x. Anytime I look at something, I'm trying to find something that's 10x undervalued. Whether that be like when I graduated high school and I was looking at Netflix. My girlfriend at the time, her parents were always getting this thing in the mail, and I was like, yo, why don't they just do this through the internet? And they kind of had it, but it wouldn't stream right. It was like so slow, and most TVs weren't ready for that. Everyone had a DVD player in 2007, 2006. So I was like, well, okay, Netflix is going to be big. Went public, and it's like, Netflix is probably 10x undervalued, Like there are like little things like that, in hindsight, Tesla, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's not really profitable, but it's kind of there's lots of things like that are just clear 10xers that you can find. I mean, at least for the last decade, you can definitely find them if you're willing to look for them. Silver to me is one of those, and it's like the most safe and like least risky, and I don't have to worry about counterparty risk. And so I just believe that we're rolling into a state of federalism where the states are going to go do their own things. They're essentially going to act like their own countries, and the federal level is going to lose legitimacy, where it's just like, yeah, I mean, I guess there's an elected president, sort of, but like no one knows his name and nobody cares. Like, and Rome was very much like this. Like, there were still emperors up for like 400 years for Rome to officially fall, but like people just stopped caring. They were just like, yeah, I mean, I guess, like,